Welcome, welcome. I'm Thomas. People might know me as Urban Cowboy, and I'm here with CK and Brian. And I'll actually go ahead and just let y'all introduce yourselves. CK first.
Uh, sure, I'll start. Hey, my first name is Chen Kong. Most people call me CK because I don't want to bother going through that awkward introduction every time of how to pronounce my name. Um, but yeah, I'm mostly based in Taipei now. Born and raised LA. Been in America, California, SoCal most of my life. But mostly based in Taipei now because I run a bar. I have opened a cocktail bar and restaurant about a year and a half ago. So I'm mostly based there. And I mean, I did that just because like that's where we connected on, right? Was just I love the urbanist life, and I find Taipei to have a great balance. I've been to major metropolises all over most of the world now, and I still find Taipei to have uh, one of the best balances of everything in terms of
Okay, I'm
lifestyle,
excited. I'm
culture,
excited to
art.
get. Yeah, I have a lot of like comparative questions. I'm very curious
Mhm.
what you think about Taipei compared to other cities. But before we get to that, Brian.
Yeah, so I'm Brian, Brian Hugh. I'm a journalist. I founded an independent media about a decade ago, and that's a New Bloom magazine. We also run a bar in Taipei as well, which is Daybreak. And so, yeah, we've been around for over a decade. I was a student participant in a movement 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and that led to forming a media outlet, and I became a journalist through that. And so, yeah, I grew up in New York. I've also lived just variously over, and I also find Taipei very interesting as a city, having lived in various metropolises that are much larger, but I also do find Taipei quite unique in that respect.
Yeah. So yeah, just kind of jumping right into it. I didn't get to spend that much time in Taipei. I was basically there for a long weekend when I was lucky enough to meet up with CK. Um, and after I did some research, to me, Taipei is an amazing city. Like I have very few complaints, if any. But I did, I guess, notice some people had some complaints. Some people tend to think, I guess, that it's maybe a little more car oriented than I don't know, maybe Tokyo. I'm not sure exactly what they're comparing to. Have y'all heard that? Any sentiment of that like that? What are your thoughts?
So the common joke within Taiwan, within both travelers and like local Taiwanese people, is that Taiwan is a pedestrian hell. Because despite Taipei, well, so Taipei is not representative of the rest of Taiwan. All right, Taipei is Taipei. It's
I've
the
also
most
heard
urban,
this.
yeah, the most international urban city, and I love Taipei. But yeah, there are plenty of parts where pedestrian infrastructure isn't great, and I think this kind of gets into like the Taiwanese personality. Obviously, it's a broad brush stroke, but I think Taiwanese people are excellent pedestrians, like very rule abiding, kind of like you go to Japan and then the light hasn't, there's no cars, and then the light is red, but they still won't cross the street. While like America, New York, they'll just cross the street, no hesitation, right? But then once you put a Taiwanese person behind the wheels of a car on a scooter, they're like speed demons, you know, right? So like it's like when there's consequences or they have to maintain face, they're polite, but then when they don't have to, they just they don't care, and it comes back to like a like Asian like sabudo culture, and sabudo is like it's Mandarin for like it's about right, like it's just like good enough, you know. Brian, does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people always talk about that's pedestrian hell, and I always joke that, well, pedestrian hell is other people. And so it does have to do with the driving culture, but also versus walking, and it privileges cars. Until very recently, when fines were stiffened by a great deal, it would be the car that has the right of way and just kind of goes into the crosswalk and you have to wait. Now it's changed a little bit, where the car is afraid to be fined, and so then they let the pedestrians through. But sometimes somebody will still just barrel through. And there's also been even a recent string of incidents where there are fatal accidents, all caused by drivers in their 70s. But at the same time, I think it's kind of in scale, in terms of Taiwan and Taipei specifically. it is, parts of it are not very walkable, but it is walkable in the sense that you go different places and the sidewalk, the texture just changes block to block from storefront to storefront. And so, for example, if you're in a wheelchair, it's not very easy to get around. But then compared to, let's say, Southeast Asia, it's not on that order of magnitude where it is unwalkable and you can only go from car to another place. And so there's that.
Which
Yeah.
parts of Southeast Asia have you been to?
Like, for example, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, places like that. And those are, of course, these massive cities which you have, particularly Manila and Jakarta, where you have hours of just being stuck in a car every day. And you're getting around by a Grab, for example, and you're riding on a scooter or in a car, and you might be there for quite a while, although it's much easier to get around by scooter. Taipei is also a very scooter city, but it's not on the order of magnitude of Southeast Asia, where you just have all these people on scooters around picking up people and that kind of thing. For example, Uber or other ride sharing services, they don't offer scooter services in Taiwan.
Oh, yeah. Scooters are very popular here in Texas. The way I explain Southeast Asia to people is like in America, we have a lot of sidewalks, but we don't have a lot of density. So you can kind of like walk a lot of places often, but like you can walk and there will probably be a space for you to walk, but there's just not enough stuff close together. Depending
Yeah.
on obviously where if you're in New York City, it's different. But whereas in Southeast Asia, it's like they have all this density, but they don't really make room for sidewalks. Like every sidewalk is either a restaurant, plastic chairs and a table, or like it's motorcycle parking. And then Taipei is obviously, I mean, for me, I found quite walkable. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's quite walkable, especially the central areas for sure. Quite walkable, quite bikeable too, and also like the U-bike, the public bike share system. I think last year was it Brian? They changed it to free for the first 30 minutes. It was already dirt cheap. It was like 16 cents, U.S. cents per 30 minutes or something. And they just made it free. And during the cooler months, I love using it. Going everywhere. It's super great. Um, yeah, I find Taiwan to be basically like halfway between Japan and Southeast Asia. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's about
yes.
right. Yeah,
Basically,
public
yeah.
transport
Like
is still
they're
pretty developed.
yeah, public transport very developed. Clutter, plenty of clutter and scooters, but not as insane and chaotic as Southeast Asia. Um, you know, yeah, that's like the easiest easiest way to sum it up, even though it doesn't cover
Yeah.
everything. But
For me, I know there are other places that have this, but for me, Taipei was the place that had the craziest subterranean or like, I mean, you have stuff like this in, like if you go to Germany and you go to a train station, like there are shops and stuff, but it's to another level in Taipei where there's like this huge mall underneath the city, essentially. Do you guys like that, or do you find yourself down there eating often or hanging out? I think there's like gyms down there. It's crazy.
yeah. I love it. I mean, I hate the heat, so summer months are terrible. So it's nice. I mean, you just sort of have to ignore, like, like, I just have to tell myself not to worry about the AC and how much energy it's using because there's no way, like, like a metric kilometer of AC underground is like not consuming just a mountain of resources. It's nice though to like have, right? Um, mhm.
Well, I guess since it's underground, maybe there's good like they don't have to cool it that like it stays the same temperature. Hopefully, I have no idea. I'm totally just guessing. Something else. I wonder if you guys have opinions on this. I heard people saying that Taipei was ugly. Now, to me, I thought Taipei is beautiful. I love just like density and like vibrancy, and I think what people are complaining about is that a lot of the apartments and stuff are quite old um, uh, and it's expensive, like especially for a local. I think so. Maybe there's some resentment about that. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Brian, yeah, thoughts?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think buildings are often old, but then they can be quite nice on the inside. And I think the other factor is that there's just mold everywhere because Taipei is just extremely humid and it's in the middle of a basin and just rains. And so there's a lot of things that are not much to look at. Another factor is that after World War II, there's a lot of temporary structures, and those structures ended up, in fact, becoming permanent because the Chinese Nationalist Party came to Taiwan after its defeat, expected to stay there a little while and go back, and it became permanent. And so all these temporary structures became permanent. But I find that it really adds to the character of the city, whereas I think if it's much more gentrified, then everything looks the same. We talked about the underground malls earlier, for example, and because of the heat in Asia, whether East or Southeast Asia, I think this kind of model of city is emerging where basically you go through like a mall on your way to another shopping mall, on your way to another shopping mall. That's where people hang out, and that's incredibly boring. But then I think Taipei, though, maybe people think it is ugly, that's in fact the charm of the city. And it prevents things from just becoming this, like a mall where everything is about the same. You go to another mall and it's still basically the same thing. So I think that's something I quite like, actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
did. No, go ahead.
now okay. I mean, I think it starts off right, like you said, like that's what everyone says, like, oh, these are all old 60-year-old buildings, or 60, 80-year-old buildings. They weren't built with the intent to last, which is which is another issue because like we have earthquakes, right? But eventually, like what starts with like maybe practical reasons or something ends up becoming, give it enough time, right? It becomes the culture, right? The shortcuts end up becoming the style.
Do you both
Um,
live in older buildings?
oh yeah, I live in an old building for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and
Like,
I
what is
think
a
it goes, yeah.
standard? Like, I'm a little bit familiar with like Japanese, how they structure their like real estate, where you get like a 1 LK or whatever. And do
Hmm.
you know what I'm talking about? Is it
Yeah.
is it kind of? I mean, I'm guessing it's got to be in the same ballpark of like where a lot of people have smaller apartments. Like, is it a luxury to have a like a bedroom, living room, kitchen?
Bedroom, living room, kitchen.
Like, are
I
people living in a
think.
lot of studios?
Yeah, I think if you live with other people and you have roommates, that's pretty normal to have a bedroom and living room and kitchen. But if you live alone, usually not. You have a lot of studios, which are some landlord decided to divide up an apartment building and then carve it out into like three different studios, for
Mhm.
example. And then you might have a common area, you might not. Each one has a bathroom, but it might just be a bedroom, and so there's that. It's not as small as let's say Tokyo or Hong Kong, though. It's not to that extent. There are some pretty
Oh
small
yeah.
areas. I've seen some horrifying apartments too that are basically geared towards very young college students that have no idea what they're getting into, and there's no windows, so if there's a fire, it's a death trap. But it's not on the level of, let's say, the coffin homes of Hong Kong for sure.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. Um, Also, like kitchens, especially for like student or like young single people living, most places don't really have much of a kitchen, if at all.
Mhm.
Like most people might have like a burner, and just because dine out culture, like takeout culture, eating outside culture is so widespread and cheap in Taiwan. Like going to a market, buying raw ingredients, coming home, prepping it, cleaning up, and tossing it all out, not necessarily cheaper, for sure a lot more time invested than like just going to your corner shop and buying some, pork rice or some street food, you know. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Sure. Mhm.
yeah. I know when people move to Japan, Americans, they're always like shocked about like the level of. I think a lot of places don't even have like a stove, so you don't really bake things. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, no. Yeah, ovens are not. Wait, you talking about stove or oven? Because ovens aren't standard in Asian
Oven,
kitchens
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The big American style where you can roast an entire turkey for Thanksgiving. That's the biggest thing I miss when I'm in Taiwan in my kitchen is just having a big, yeah, so I can like roast a big, lump of meat and have friends over. But that's also not common. Like a big roast, like a giant chunk of meat, isn't very common in butcher shops here and markets.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
more
Do
I
you
also
so.
find
feel.
yourself do you find yourself missing space? I always find this is way overblown by Americans. They're like, oh, I need my giant yard and all this
Hmm.
stuff. Do you find yourself missing that or wanting more space or not really?
Me myself, no. What about you, Brian?
I think not really. Yeah, because you have to take care of a yard and so forth. But I think that actually what happens in Taipei, particularly, or other cities, is that people end up outsourcing the space that in America you have at home to outdoor spaces or businesses. So you might go to a coffee shop to hang out with your friends because you don't have a living room, or you go to restaurants and eat out, and it's actually usually cheaper to eat out than to cook sometimes. And so parks, they're not a lot of huge parks. There's a few, but then there's like the small parks that integrate into kind of everyday life, and I feel like that is a way of outsourcing some of these functions that I think for America it's all at home.
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh
common
my
to see
gosh.
like a tiny neighborhood park, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and then you'll see like old people just chilling there in the evening. They'll have like weird workout devices for old people to move there, you know, to move, they have like, you know what I'm talking about, Brian? Like,
Exactly,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
running
Yeah.
or stretching, or you might see them dancing in the park.
Yeah, and then like I mean, yeah, Taipei doesn't have a lot of parks, but I think what Taipei has done with the parks has been pretty nice. Like what parks they have, Don Central Park, the Riverside parks I love. Those are
Totally.
amazing.
Yeah, I live right by
Absolutely love
there.
them. Like there's Dalhe Night Market, and there's the Riverside Park right above it, and you just see summer night you go there. It's just a lot of people who bought food from the night market just chilling there eating. It's great, and there's a lot of biking and running paths there.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I don't miss it. My hot take, and I've definitely had discussions with American friends, is that I think Americans are too used to like what Americans are have what's been normalized as standard as like what Americans should take for granted as far as living space is uh, more than you need, too much. You know, I've lived a little bit in Europe, in a European city. I've lived plenty in Asian cities, and you don't need that yard. Like every time I come back to LA and I drive through the streets and I drive past a residential neighborhood with big yards, big backyards, I get a little irritated because this is why I have to drive. You know, this is why it's a
Yeah.
10-minute drive to the closest anything. And what's the closest something? A McDonald's. Um, like you don't. Not
Do they
everyone
have
needs
they
that
have
yard.
McDonald's in Taipei? I didn't eat
There,
there.
yeah, they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
McDonald's.
What's the item there that isn't on American menus?
Corn soup.
That's true.
Corn soup? Is that like an
There's
egg
a
drop soup?
kind of, yeah, similar. Like corn cream, corn with. Does it have egg, Brian?
I think it sometimes does. Actually, I don't. I haven't eaten McDonald's in a long time, but I think it does actually.
Can you find good American pizza? Because I find that like a lot of places, like you could find Italian pizza, but like if you want like a New York slice, that is difficult.
There's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
one place. Yeah.
yeah. Recently there
Which
are more New York slices actually, which is very recent. But in the past there was not. It was all just Italian style pizza.
Yeah, Neapolitan style. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like two places I can think of that have decent New York slice style. Um, yeah, and I even have one friend who's he's like a F&B investor. He's a
Mhm.
restaurateur, and he keeps trying to rope me in to a New York slice venture, and I'm like, I've never made a slice of pizza in my life. Why do you want? you know.
And Brian's the one with the New York connection, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh, we both went to NYU actually.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah, we
Oh,
overlap too.
yeah,
really?
Yeah,
yeah, we didn't
no, we
know
didn't.
each
We
other
didn't know each
then,
other,
but yeah,
but
no. 1 year apart, and that's what we found that out after. So I was like, oh, okay.
I actually don't know. I would guess that most Taiwanese Americans are in New York City and California. I grew up around. I think there was some in Houston, but Houston is more like Vietnamese. Like there's other Asian populations there, or like mainland Chinese people. Um, where in your mind are Taiwanese Americans in America?
I'm born and raised in the SGV, San Gabriel Valley in Southern California, and that was like maybe the one of the first epicenters of mass Taiwanese immigration into uh, into America. I think by and large, they're most Taiwanese Americans, from my impression, are coastal. right? There actually is a Taiwanese American Citizens League, TACO, and underneath it, it has these social chapters for socializing and networking called TAP, Taiwanese American Professionals. But if you look up the chapters, I would say those would probably be like the epicenter. They're mainly coastal, like Bay Area, SoCal, New York, Georgia has one. I think Texas might
I think Michigan
have
as well.
one. Yeah,
I
I
also think
don't
primarily
know.
coastal.
Hmm.
I do think California is much larger
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're like the birthing ground. Like we're like where everyone came and like grouped up before they sort of scattered
Mhm.
um, and dispersed. You know.
What was and maybe you don't know. My Taiwanese history is not great. Was there a particular time of exodus to America? Like, was it post, you know, World War II, or do you know?
Oh, so that gets into identity and history and stuff. Brian, you wanna...
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different exoduses, but then during the authoritarian era, which was after World War II, there's a lot of people that studied in the U.S., and they can be both those who are there from migration in the past hundreds of years from China, or more recently after the Chinese Civil War. But then often you have to be considered politically okay by the government to be allowed to study abroad. But then there's still a lot of people that ended up becoming political dissidents that were in the U.S. But then also more recently, I mean, in the 90s, because there was this tension with China across the straits that leads to a wave of migration. But I think more Chinese Americans are from earlier waves of migration, before the 1990s, for example. Yeah.
So I want to segue into running a business. To me, this intersects a lot with like urbanism because it's like a big, annoying thing in America. It's like if you want to open up a food cart and just like sell some food on the street, like it could be challenging. Like actually in Austin, we have a really strong food truck scene. But so it's not completely absent, but not like it is in Taipei. Do you feel like is there are there a lot of roadblocks that you would want to see removed in Taipei towards opening businesses and running businesses, or do you feel like it's in like a pretty good state?
From my experience personally, I think there could be some adjustments, but I think that has more to do with just the nature of my business. Like, we are a restaurant. It's like harder if you want to be like a pure alcohol providing establishment. You'll need like a liquor license, or you'll need a very specific type of zoning. And even if you get a liquor license, the license is attached to the location. Now, it's not attached to your company or to an individual. Like I believe, Netherlands, I believe is attached to an individual. So that individual has to be on the premises when you're operating and serving and other things. But so then a lot of businesses will not want to obtain like the liquor license because if they have to move a location later, they can't take the liquor license with them. Um, Things like that.
Hmm.
I think Taiwan overall, kind of like Japan too, like there is just like a very, like a history of just like small cash businesses, like the night markets, personal stands, and things like that. Um, and I think those are like a separate government and like a legal registration. I think, which I think is easier, but my view is a little bit limited. I don't know, Brian. Do you have?
Yeah, my view is similar. Some of it is a bit surprising where the law lags behind what exists to an extremely large extent. For example, the Wall, which is the major indie venue in Taiwan, was also classified as like an eatery for a long time, despite the fact that they have no food, because of the fact that it was so difficult to get the necessary approvals to run as a venue that serves alcohol and so forth. And that's kind of crazy because it's such a large space. And there's that. I mean, I think because of the cash based kind of culture, that has helped in some respects. It's true that when you go to the night market, once in a while the police will come and you'll see all these different, vendors just with their carts just running off because of the fear of an inspection. But then there also is the bureaucracy. I think, I don't know, some of it can be kind of stupid. For example, I'm a bit tired of filing taxes and then finding that the government has changed their UI of the uploading receipt system yet again. And I'm just like, it was fine before. Like, just you can, if you want to give it a fresh coat of paint, that's fine. Just don't move around like the functions I use on a monthly basis. stuff like that. But then I think it's overall okay. I think the barriers are lower than other places. I mean, it's not like, a lot of cities you're dealing with like insane amount of regulations, and so there is that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
San Francisco
that's
seems crazy.
mhm.
Like I'm sure you'd rather be running your business in Taipei than trying to open up a. I know there was some like noodle restaurant that was trying to open up in San Francisco, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't know if they were exaggerating this for PR, but they were like, we spent like $500,000 just trying to, you know, figure out the regulations."
Wow, that's more than my initial investment to open a place. But I mean, it's also, yeah, I mean, cost, right? Cost. I think it's kind of like back to what I said about like the tabutor, like the good enough mentality in Taiwan. There is a lot of gray area legally in Taiwan. Like kind of like, okay, if you're not caught, then it's fine. Um, there's plenty of like restaurants, F&B establishments that definitely have like some additions or construction that's not up to code or is illegal, but then it was like grandfathered in, maybe because like the previous tenant did it and it was never discovered. And then when like an inspector comes in, they'll be like, "That's illegal, but just don't touch it anymore because they can't. It's already been done." So like kind of like a no harm, no foul kind of deal. Um, yeah, it's very lot of gray area stuff going on. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's been my experience. Yeah, just it's about like a quarter the cost to open something, maybe, or maybe even one-fifth the cost to open something in Taipei versus a major American city, maybe even less. Yeah.
Are they? This is something I keep track of in a lot of cities I'm involved with, but I don't know if you're aware. Are they building out any major new infrastructure, like new rail lines in Taipei that you're aware of?
Yeah, they're building new rail lines. I think always just for the sake of electioneering. Local politicians want to say they built more transportation. Like where I live in Wanhua, which is the oldest part of Taipei, like they're building a new line, and I'm not even sure it's necessarily all that like needed because it's true that in southern Wanhua transportation is not very developed, but there are buses, and so I don't get it. I'm not sure adding a few stops will really change things, and they're building out a light rail. It's not very clear to me if all of it will be used, but then other parts of Taiwan, there's less in the way of public infrastructure for transportation, and so that is also something that's been kind of underway. One of the issues, though, is also corruption, where they keep adding stops to MRTs and metro systems just because that raises the property prices. And so there's some murkiness there, actually, and that's another issue.
Yeah, I think I was reading a little bit about like the development of like high-speed rail in China. Example, and like
Mm,
just because
yeah.
I was looking at a map, like 2004 high-speed rail versus like current like 2024, 20 years, right? 2004 was like mainly the big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, whatever. And now 2024, it's like almost all of China. And that's seeing that really made me think like, damn, America, you got to step it up because yeah, we wasted 20 years. There's what development is high-speed rail in America in 20 years, right? Or just um, LA, now that I'm spending most of the time in Taiwan, every time I come back, like I come back to LA like maybe once a year. It's kind of pleasant. I'm like a little pleasantly surprised every time I come back. Like I think 1 or 2 years ago they dropped food vendor fees from like a couple hundred to just like $30, and then so coming back, I really noticed a lot more just street vendors, and
Hmm.
that definitely feels like more people on the streets, more people just standing outside instead of just concrete, right? Just miles of concrete and cars. And then I do see the LA Metro, uh, like in preparation for the Olympics, right? They're expanding. They're really expanding, and which
Hmm.
is nice to see. I honestly can't say I've really ridden it. I've ridden it like once or twice, and that problem is, even if there's a metro, LA is too spread apart, right? Um, but there are times when I think I want to take it because my brother worked in like Hollywood before, and from where I am to Hollywood, rush hour was like 1 hour, hour and a half drive, and maybe another 15 minutes just to park, unless I pay like $20 to park. And I
Yeah.
thought for me to drive to Pasadena, park there easily, and then take the metro to Hollywood would also be about an hour, and I don't have to park. and everything. It really made me consider it, just because the traffic was so bad. Um, so I think, yeah, lowering the barriers is nice. And then, but then back to what I saw about the China thing is sort of like, the China ended up getting like a construction industrial complex, right? Where it just got bloated and people were building just to maintain the machine and keep it going. And then that ended up, I don't know if you've seen like the videos of entire high rises that are like, they were stopped halfway through and then they were exposed to the elements too long and then they have to like demolish them. So I can't imagine how many millions, if not billions of dollars that's wasted, which is tragic. So it's like the good of having that is like things will be built. And then the bad is also after a certain point, it's like, are we building things that we don't need just because to keep this thing going? Um, and like the Taiwan Metro, I believe, the Taipei Metro, I believe, only two lines, the two major lines make money. Everything else doesn't. And not to say that a public utility needs to be profitable, right? But um,
Hmm.
I can see and that's only because the Taipei Metro is so nice. It's so developed, it's so great. Every station has clean, maintained bathrooms, toilets, um, and then they're it's just really nice and well run. I can see an argument for being like maybe we've come enough, done enough, and the rest is buses are enough. I think most of the world, not most of the world, most of America, let's say, needs to catch up though. It's like it's way too early to even like discuss like have we come too far, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Um, well, this is kind of random, but I didn't really get to go there. But isn't New Taipei? It's kind of like the western side. Um, is it like a lot more suburban over there?
It's like a
Parts, yeah.
donut around Taipei. Like they were all different cities before they were unified into New Taipei. But then it is like the commuter. Some are probably not more suburban. Yeah, I mean Linkou is pretty suburban, for example. But then other parts of it are still pretty urban. Like for example, Zhonghe, and a lot of people will commute from there. Taipei is also part of the greater Taipei metropolitan area, which is Taipei, New Taipei, Keelung, Taoyuan, uh, arguably even Hsinchu and Zhanghua. And so there's that.
Hmm.
What's the airport's name? Tao Yuan?
Yeah,
Something like that.
Taoyuan. Yeah, it's about an
Tao.
hour. Yeah.
That's way out, like far from the center of
It's pretty far,
Taipei
but not too
101 and all
bad.
that
The
stuff.
airport MRT Express gets there in what, 30, 35 minutes?
Yeah, 35. Yeah, yeah. So but it
35
comes every
minutes.
15 minutes. So that's basically an hour at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Um,
Can you imagine? Like, yeah,
But if you want to
yeah.
get to the other side of Taiwan, how do people usually do that?
From like the north to the south.
Sure, yeah. Or another
mhm.
major city, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, high speed rail. It's like very
Is it
fast. I
rail?
mean, yeah, basically anywhere is just like an hour or two. So it's very convenient.
Hmm. Unless you want to go to like a village in the hills or something,
Even then, you'd
Yeah,
probably
maybe
take high speed rail somewhere and then maybe get off and take a car, unless you're just driving. But
or rent a motorbike or something.
yeah,
Are
I think
are
I think
y'all comfortable on motorbikes?
I'm not. I don't drive
I'm
a
down.
scooter. I probably kill somebody. Yeah.
I
No,
rented a
I don't even
motorbike in
like driving,
Vietnam, and
so
it was a near death. They should not let foreigners rent motorbikes in Southeast Asia, but they got drunk Australians killing themselves every year. Um, it is great fun, but it's actually interesting. Like Vietnam, um, if you went to Vietnam 20 years ago, there were like hardly any cars. And now they haven't really changed their infrastructure at all, but now they've got, it's a status symbol to have a car. And I think I'm obviously biased, but I think it's really ruining a lot of Vietnamese areas because it's just dangerous. You've got like these SUVs like in these like Hoi An and these like little cities, and it's just
they're
really
not designed
super
for that.
sketchy.
Yeah.
No.
My hot take is I believe cars bring out the worst in society. In a society. That's my hot take.
I
And it's
agree
not
with that.
like you're a bad person for having a car, but like car ownership and the shortcuts that having a car and then the way a city develops and all that stuff brings out a lot of the just not good side of people. Like people get like someone bumps into me in the street, I'll be like, "Oh, it's all good." A car cuts me off, I immediately get irritated, and then I have to like tell myself it's not a big deal. But then like earlier just today, I accidentally like not on purpose. I actually pulled, like, I guess cut someone off, and he was honking real loud, and like,
So
road rage is a
mad.
thing, right? Um,
Yeah.
Road rage is a thing. I believe cars are an abusive relationship, and the car industry has done a great job of of convincing people to love their cars. When I think like this is a financial burden, I need insurance. The thing gets bumped. Cars don't heal. I have to bring it to the body shop, right? I'm tied to this thing. I feel like it's your own personal prison. Um, Instead of like, oh well, Americans have been like fed and taught and convinced that this is their freedom, right? It's the key to their freedom. They can explore anywhere in the country, which is also true. But for day to day life, I feel like it's prison. You know.
I think I know you're involved, Brian, with like progressive politics.
Hmm.
I certainly lean progressive, but one thing I'm very interested in is like how to make more conservative arguments for better urbanism in America, because obviously we have a lot of conservative people here, and I think that there is like strong like conservative arguments for having better like walkability and stuff. And like for me, it's like there should be more options. Like it's not conservative to spend a bunch of resources on mandating that everybody has a yard and then everybody has to own a car and then you have like this big expense and like it's not efficient. Um, and I feel like people should have the deep, like when I moved to Seattle, I didn't have a car. I lived 5 years without a car, and it allowed me to save a lot of money and live like a cheaper lifestyle. Um, and I just feel like that should be like the default that's available to everybody if they want to make that sacrifice. And sure, like if you want to buy a car and make that expense, you can.
Hmm. Yeah, I
That's
think
kind of where I'm
actually,
at.
yeah, in
Yeah.
Taiwan, I feel like there's not a lot of arguments about that actually between the left and the right, or the two major political camps. Both are pretty okay, I think, actually, with building up urban infrastructure, but also I think healing the kind of urban-rural divide as well, because rural places have less resources. I think both sides are actually relatively okay, and there's not a lot of disagreement there, honestly. They may fight about specifics of things or just take the other argument just to have a different argument, but I feel like actually that's actually relatively there is political agreement, I think.
When it comes to cities and like the city
Yes,
structure.
that's right.
Yeah, I think that's how it is in much of the world, because much of the world has defaulted to like more walkability than America
Yeah.
has.
I think they'll
I
fight
think the
about what is the
conservative
better
argument.
way to improve a city, but not about the, baseline, I feel like.
I think the conservative argument is just property prices, right? Like the more public transportation you have near you, like the more attractive and value your property has. Um, America might not feel that way though, because people like their big houses and lots, and they feel like a train next to your house and the noise would drop your property price. But like, I mean, Manhattan is crazy expensive, right? Because it's dense, walkable, it has all that stuff that we wish the rest of America would have. Um,
I think that's true in almost all of America, where you get these people that are anti-transit or whatever, but then you have this phenomenon where all the most desirable places to be are more walkable, more transitable. I'm not too familiar with LA, but I'm pretty sure it's like that, where a lot of the destinations are a little bit more walkable and transitable. Maybe not like Beverly Hills or whatever, not the ultra rich places where people are paying to be kind of segregated from the rest of society, but like West Hollywood or whatever. I'm just dropping names. I haven't even been there. Um, yeah,
yeah. I
it's
have
it's a bit of a shame.
yeah. I was talking with someone. Someone came to my bar like a few months ago, and he was from Seattle. And he's trying to. Funny thing, because you said like you enjoyed the life of Seattle. He's trying to move from Seattle to Asia, or trying to find a way. Um, because it's just the public transport is just more widespread and available. But he was telling me how like all of this infrastructure, public spaces, community, third places, being so much and plentiful is wealth, right? And I agree. And he was like, Jeff Bezos has to wake up and look out his penthouse and see somebody shooting up in the park because no one, like these places aren't maintained. That's so he has to spend a lot of money, millions of dollars to go whatever. Like even Jeff Bezos can't avoid this. Um, so wouldn't it be nice if just everything were just developed and nicer, you know? Right? Not just
Yeah,
your
if the
house.
floor was higher, basically.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, is there any sketchy part of Taipei? Like, I don't know. I don't
That's probably
think
where I
so.
live. So I live in the oldest and poorest part of all of Taiwan. And so one of the oldest, but one of the older parts. So it's the oldest part of Taipei, at least. But that's where the majority of the homeless population is. There's a lot of sex work. They're gangsters. And honestly, it's not the most dangerous place either. So that is also the thing. It's kind of an odd historic phenomenon where the majority of homeless in Taipei all live in the same area because there are all these temples there historically, and so the temples would feed the homeless, and so they congregated there. And then in modern time, that's where all the NGOs that help out the homeless went, and so that just kind of mires in the area more. It's also true that that area has a lot of arcades with roofs above, so when it rains, you don't get rained on. And so there's that, but it's honestly not that dangerous compared to your average American city. It's still much safer. And so I've had all these, run-ins with gangsters, honestly, and it's just kind of strange. But then, so far, nothing's happened to me, and I feel less safe when I'm in the U.S. basically anywhere, compared to there even.
Yeah, the U.S. is strange because we're like, I don't feel that sketched out in a lot of places, but it's nothing compared to Asia, which is most of Asia, which is just so safe. Like my bar is like, could I send my grandmother or my daughter or my wife or whoever? I'm using females because that's usually who is used as the example, right? Like, would I feel comfortable sending them to walk by themselves? Like, I'll walk all over Seattle. I don't give a crap. I don't feel unsafe basically anywhere. But there are places where I wouldn't really want to see my daughter see somebody shooting up in the street, and if something did happen, they're not as able to defend themselves. And by that metric, I feel like if you're a woman walking around in Taipei, you almost be safe anywhere, even at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
agree.
so.
Totally. It's yeah. I've yeah. You see students walking home alone, taking the metro. You see at night. I think it was 7 years ago when the Me Too thing was in full swing in America. I was talking with a friend who didn't get it, and then this is late at night. It's like 2 a.m. We were just having drinks. Another thing, drinking in public is allowed. That's how you know the culture, the people and the culture are they don't have a drinking issue because they don't have a getting drunk and doing stupid stuff in public issue. But we were having drinks at 7-Eleven, 2 a.m. or something, after they got off their shift, and then he was like, "I don't get it," and I was like, "Well," I was telling him "Well, most girls, most women in the world wouldn't feel safe walking alone anywhere at night, right?" Literally, as I said that, an old lady walked by us at 2 a.m. and I was like, "Okay, don't. No, Taipei's an exception. Don't, don't. Most of the world is not like this." Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And that's another conservative argument, right? Because they're all about public safety,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the nicer
Mm-hmm.
spaces are, the more support you have for this. It just gets safer. You don't need to have guns, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
think some people, my gun-loving friends and conservatives, they kind of prefer having it being a Wild West thing because they just like feeling like a cowboy. They like having to
Yeah.
play protector, you know?
Mm-hmm. They're LARPing a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, it's
They
strange
are
because there
LARPing.
are shootings in my area once in a while, but you never really hear about it in the news, and it's just really like an
Really?
exceptional incident. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like a hostage situation in like the temple near me because there are gangs in the area, but then it was resolved peacefully. Nobody died, as far as I know. It is actually very surprising whenever because it is true that there are gun incidents, and though Taiwan is basically pretty gun free, there are still organized crime elements that do have guns, but even that is relatively exceptional. And when there's an incident, it's still very, very rare. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a film guy, and I've been trying to watch more Asian films. I have a Taipei Story, I think it's called, on my
Oh,
watch
Edward
list. I
Yang.
haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Edward Yang's films are great depictions of Taipei.
Is there still an active film scene in Taipei? It's pretty big.
Yeah, there's an indie film scene. The Taiwanese New Wave films like Edward Yang or Tsai Ming-liang, these classic depictions of Taipei. You don't get films on that level anymore, but there are still films. Uh, yeah, so it is interesting actually seeing the city come up in films, and you always see the same places, and you tend to recognize a lot of where it appears in films. So a lot of the New Wave films, like Rebels of the Neon God, for example, are shot in my neighborhood, and so that makes sense if it's about gangs. So there's that.
Is there one? Yeah, is there one movie that you think from like a city? I guess you already said like a Taipei story or whatever is like a good one. Is there like a good movie that's like this is Taipei, or at least for that moment in time? They're probably older now.
City of Sadness. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's not Taipei though. Well, it's Jiufeng,
I'm
I
kidding.
mean.
Don't. That's the Taiwanese history one. That's different. But I don't know, Brian. You would know more.
Is Taiwanese TV weird?
TV?
Some is like soap opera. Like historically, there's a lot of soap opera, telenovela stuff. Now there's more like I don't know intellectual or social issue focused dramas. Some are okay. Some are still kind of telenovela like, but it's getting better. Yeah, I think for me probably it is the one I mentioned though, Rebels of Neon God. I mean that's very much like a Taipei film.
Is that like an '80s movie or is that new?
Yeah, very much 80s. But then you go around parts of the city that appear in that and it still looks very similar.
Gotcha. Do you find yourself, are you embedded with a lot of other Taiwanese American people, or more locals? Because especially when it comes to your magazine that you run.
It's like a combination. The interesting thing is my magazine has a lot of people who are diaspora, but not exactly Chinese Americans. So they might have an American accent, but they grew up in South Africa or went to like a Taiwanese English-speaking school in China or something like that. But it's true that there's a lot of Chinese Americans around. I think that's been on the increase in the past few years as well. I think particularly after COVID, it's very visible.
Interesting. Is that in the whole, so the housing affordability thing? I don't know. We haven't dived super deep into it. Like, is there like in America, there's a growing consensus that it's like we just need to reduce the barriers to building stuff.
Yeah.
I imagine there are at least a little bit less of those barriers in Taiwan and Taipei because the acceptable level of density is so much higher by default. Is there a consensus around like how to make things more affordable, or is there an anti-immigration consensus, or like what does it feel like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, property prices are unaffordable. To afford a home in Taipei, you would have to not eat or drink for 15 years. But then rent is still very low. And so there's this consensus basically on both sides of the political spectrum that houses need to be more affordable and that speculation is driving up the housing market. On immigration, I mean, the Taiwanese public is not actually all that open. I mean, there's a declining birth rate, rising elderly population, but lowering the barriers to immigration, that'll still take some time to get to. And so that it remains to be seen, I think. But there are consensus that these are social issues. Immigration is never really discussed as much as a solution. But then I think both sides do agree that housing is just unaffordable and there needs to be something done. Just they don't really seem to be able to do anything about it currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I brought up immigration because there's this like kind of absurd, I think, thing in America where people think that, if we get rid of immigration, like all the houses are going to become affordable or whatever. And it's like
the
I don't think.
immigrants, the immigrants you're deporting, they're not the ones driving up the prices.
No.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, what, 3 empty homes, like 1 homeless person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the problem with that statistic, this is kind of a rabbit hole, but like, is that a lot of the empty homes in America are in places that nobody's going to move to. Like, yeah, like you could repurpose the like for example, they'll count like a home in like rural Nebraska that's like falling apart, and it's like you don't actually. We can't just send a homeless person to rural Nebraska and be like, here's your decrepit home. I guess live there if you want.
But that just made me think because that's what the UK did with Australia, and now Australia is doing
With the
pretty well.
prisoners.
So maybe it just takes 2 generations. You gotta just dump him somewhere terrible and give him resources. That'll be a potentially very inhumane social experiment. Yeah, I mean that's a thing. Like Japan has the Akiya, so like the empty houses in much of rural Japan too. Italy has that too, right? Plenty of rural places. Taiwan is just so. I mean, Taiwan has that too. Who has that?
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
Mhm.
it's about as bad as Japan or South Korea in terms of the fertility rate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe even worse. I think what I heard was that because Taiwan's not official, there's no official figures for it. But if you actually like look at the data, it's like worse.
Okay. What do you think? Is it the usual thing where it's like women are becoming more professional and like people just don't want to have as many kids, like kind of just
Yeah.
that
There's that.
diagnosis?
Also,
Brian.
Brian, come back.
oh, now it works. Yeah, it's starting to cut out suddenly.
Okay. You cut off
It's
right
all
when you
good.
said a woman, what demographers saying women something.
Yeah. So according to studies by demographers, that's another factor in women not having children, just the extreme amount of family pressure. And so that is also thought to be the case.
Interesting. Is there
Yeah,
any kind of Germany has like these like free daycares? They're hard to get into. Does is there a similar thing?
I think not really currently. I mean, there's attempts at
Not
more
really.
childcare services, but it's really not catching up, I think.
Yeah, not too much government support. There's like private, like Taiwan has like they have like these like pregnancy centers where you can like a pregnancy hotel where a woman who just gave birth can like chill for like a month and then all their needs are taken care of, and then their baby's taken care of, and then they give them like 3 square meals a day, and then they can just relax and recover. Obviously, but those are all private, right? So if you have the money, they're nice and you can afford it. Um, I have a friend who is doing child education, and he's saying the trend is yes, there's a lot less kids being born, but because of that, there's more resources spent per kid. Um, you know, um, they're like, okay, well, it took so much time and sacrifice to birth this one kid. We're just gonna give him the best tutors and schooling and whatever we can. But that's like most things. It's kind of like America, and it's um, what like school vouchers, kind of like it's just really like rich people spending that money on private institutions. Um, yeah.
Well, kind of wrapping up here, I'm going to give you all some time to talk about some of your undertakings here, but I want to pose one more big question to you, which is what is, if anything, the big issue that you'd like to highlight facing, I guess, Taipei today? Is it affordability, or is there something else we didn't talk about?
I think
Yeah, I think it's
for me, I
affordability.
think yeah, property prices like the huge. I mean, I think for compared to other countries, and I mean, I can't say for like Korea, but like you compare like a average Japanese salary to like a Japanese property prices, and you compare like salaries to American property prices, it's still a very big like ratio, right? Crazy, but Taiwan feels even bigger because it's like some places in Taipei are like per square foot more expensive than like next to Central Park in Manhattan, and that's just insane. Um, and like salaries here are like one third, or like a quarter American salaries. It's like what? That doesn't math. That means um, that's a huge one. I definitely think immigration can be addressed. And one statistic I saw was like, because I personally, I don't know about you, Brian, but I personally hear a lot about immigration from the POV of like wealthy immigrants, expats. So, like, and then they're like digital nomads and that kind of stuff. And then there's quite a few, like, like Westerners who've married Taiwanese spouses who complain about getting citizenship or like permanent residency, or not being able to achieve, let's say, dual citizenship or full rights, which I agree is an issue. And so for a while, I used to think like, oh, there's so many like Westerners in Taipei having this issue, we should fix this. And then you look at the numbers. It's only maybe like a couple thousand, let's say like French people, Americans in Taipei, while there's a couple 10,000 or a couple 100,000 Southeast Asian laborers. And then that's when I was like, oh, maybe it's just a racist thing. Like they, like they're trying to like, if they loosen it for the wealthy immigrants, then it'll loosen for the undesirables, which is like every country does this, right? Um, but I think it should be considered, you know.
Hey, Brian, you on the same page, or is there something we didn't mention?
Yeah, I think so. I think the unaffordability of housing is really a big thing, and I think that prices are rising. I mean, inflation has not affected Taiwan as much as other parts of the world, but that wave is coming. There's a lot of economic instability in the world that will also affect Taiwan with tariffs and all that. And so I think that is a question. I think just how to. There's agreement basically that there's a need to shore up the social safety net on both sides of the political spectrum. But then property prices has been really hard to address, and that's still a challenge, I think. And so how to change that, I'm not too sure actually. So yeah.
Do either of y'all have like a game plan, or do you even have a desire to, like is owning your home, is that like a something you really want? And if so, do you have like I'm gonna go buy like a cheaper home in like some other part of Taiwan? Like, is that something that you would do?
So for me personally, I think the ratio of property price to rent is so insane in Taiwan that I just rent.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
agree. Yeah, I
um,
think I'll just rent.
like, I don't want to take out a 30, 40 year loan for a house that by the time I own it, it's 40 years old at best, and at worst, it's like 100 years old because it was a 60-year-old building. You know, um, that's an issue, and the government is unwilling to adjust it because I think that's an issue with like a small population, small government that like a lot of the money and politicians might be intertwined. So then they all know that if property prices drop, or like they're all gonna uh, hurt from it. So then they're just very not trying to, yeah, and it's exacerbated. It's what it feels
Yeah.
like. Mhm.
Well, before we go, I would like to give you. I don't know, CK, if you want to plug your business, and Brian your magazine. CK, you can go first. I think it.
Sure.
I'll just say first of all, I've been to your bar and it's amazing. So
Thank you. Uh-huh. Yeah, so my bar is called Nisei. Nisei is Japanese for second generation or two worlds, and this comes from myself. I speak Japanese also, and that's a whole other thing about Taiwan history and Japan and that kind of stuff. But yeah, because we are like second generation immigrants, and it's about like the meeting of two worlds. So that's sort of the theme and what I want to push. I love it whenever I'm at the bar and then someone new to Taiwan comes and I can introduce them and talk to them about the culture and the history and they recommend them places. That's what I did when you arrived. Sadly, it was the last day you were in Taiwan, so you had to catch your flight after that. Um, but yes, I love the intersection, culture, food, and how that all manifests in itself. But yeah, so Nisei, Nisei. We do cocktails, we do a full food menu. It's all I hope it's decent. So yeah, come check us out.
I love. Okay, I can't get it to show up. I love Taipei so much that I put it as one of my time zones on my phone, just to kind of like remind myself because I want to go back. And also, I like to just be aware of like what time it is in that part of the world, and just like kind of remind myself. Um, a little random, but yeah, Brian.
Yeah, so I run a New Bloom magazine. So New Bloom, NEWBLOOM at mag.net. We also run a physical space in Taipei for events, so we do talks and discussions and things like that. And so yeah, we write on Chinese politics and social issues. It's been around for 11 years.
Are you? Is that a difficult line of business to be in Taiwan, like media?
Well, it makes no money, and so we're all volunteers, so there's also that. But I guess it is. I think in terms of, I also just freelance as a journalist, and that's also just always touch and go, but that's the nature of freelancing.
Do you write in Chinese and English?
Mostly in English. I write once in a while in Chinese, but it's usually more like a longer essay or something like that. But my writing is not really all that great in Chinese.
Word.
And the way I
Um,
like to, yeah.
no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you have time left, or I was just joking.
Yeah,
Like the
I'm
way
good.
okay. The way I introduced Brian to all my friends, so I was like, oh yeah, whenever like he's a journalist, covers politics and all this, and whenever China does something to Taiwan, he gets interviewed to like give the POV. It's always like, oh hey, it's Brian's on the news again. What did China do? Um, that's another thing. I would like more and more. I mean, back to the immigration really quickly. Just I would like more and more people international to
Yeah.
come to Taiwan just to raise awareness, people to learn about us, and like check it out, check us out. Don't just. I would love for more people to, when they hear Taiwan, they one don't either think Thailand, or and two they don't just think, oh, when is China invading? Like, I always joke with my journalist friends, like I go like, you bastards, like, can you write an article without mentioning China? Um, because it's almost like someone introducing you as your ex's ex, not as your own person. Yeah.
Yeah. I think just from a lot of Americans, Taiwan is a very distant, remote place, and the only way they know about it, if they don't have some kind of connection to it, is through the global politics piece. One of my best friends is married to a Taiwanese American, and he's from Nebraska, and his parents, I believe, when they first heard of, they heard Taiwan, they're like, oh, they thought it was Thailand. I would encourage let me know if you disagree, but like I would encourage everybody to visit Taipei. Like it feels like millennials have aged and now they have pocket money, and now every millennial American loved Japan as a child, so it's like, oh, I gotta go to Tokyo. And I feel like Taipei is such an underrated like alternative. I don't know if it might not be cheaper or anything, but it is like a cool other thing that you can do other than just going to Tokyo, or Japan.
I totally agree. I think it's worth checking out. And like, can't wait for you to come back so I can like give you some more shots.
Yeah, look me up then as well.
That was good.
Yeah.
Feel free to cut out. I'll be back for sure.
Yeah. Feel free to cut out the China bit if it's a little too political.
No, it's okay. I'm actually surprised we didn't really get that edgy. But yeah, I'll put y'all's information in the whatever description or whatever, and I highly recommend you follow. Brian, do you think your magazine is it's probably interesting even for people who are not like deeply embedded in Taiwan, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Or I think so. I hope so.
Yeah. It's pretty politics focused, right? Or no?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
He also
so
just released his
like me, you'll like it.
novel.
Yeah, I wrote like a fiction novel.
What
Came
is
out in January. It's about like
pitch?
social events in Taiwan and also in Japan and the US as well. So similar topic.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, thanks, y'all. Until next time, and there will be a next time. I appreciate y'all coming on.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Thanks so much.